The peaceful afternoon shatters with Mom's command. This stranger is invading his sanctuary. She beams like sunshine, reaching out, while Jae-hyuk trembles, shrinking from her touch. Under one roof, she takes the second floor, trapping him below. The gears of fate begin to grind. The nightmare deepens. "I'm transferring to your school," she says, striking him like a bolt of lightning. Watching her leave so lightly, Jae-hyuk freezes, sensing this chaos is only the beginning. Suddenly, the innocent mask rips apart. Cigarette in hand, she coldly demands, "Got a light?" Under her aggressive glare, cold sweat pours. He can't even meet her eyes, crumbling into dust. "You're a loser, aren't you?" The words unsheathed like a blade, stabbing his deepest wound. This is his reality. Every day at school, the mockery clings to him like a curse, branding him a loser. Behind Jo Sangbom's smile lie fangs. A single refusal triggers an instant explosion of violence. Without reason, fists rained down simply because he dared to answer, dared to breathe like a human. Painful memories surge. This entire nightmare began with a single, mistaken loaf of bread. The devil laughs, turning violence into a math game. Every random count tramples his dignity. Footsteps save him for now, but he knows the hunt isn't over merely paused. Before his wounds can heal, the name from the podium makes his heart stop cold. Lee Min-chai stands there with an impeccable smile, as if she never bared her fangs at him. Fate loves a cruel joke. The only empty seat lies directly behind him, like a gaping trap. Eyes lock. She recognizes the loser downstairs, and Jae-hyuk hears the bells of hell tolling. She sits, radiating danger. Mom asked him to care for her, but he can't even save himself. The classroom's calm shatters as a sharp sting pierces Jae-hyuk. He spins around in horror, only to find Min-chai grinning mischievously, holding the weapon, and clearly enjoying his humiliation. Next comes a crumpled note. "Don't act like you know me, loser." Rage flares, but quickly fades into resignation. He wouldn't have the guts to talk to her anyway. As the bell rings, he swallows his loneliness and buries himself in his books. Kindness overrides cowardice as he watches her solitary figure. Jae-hyuk slips her a hand-drawn map, detailed with food spots and safety tips. The clumsy tenderness behind the gesture catches Min-chai off guard, sparking genuine surprise. But warmth is fleeting. In the dark corner of the restroom, the air freezes. The bully Jo Sangbom corners Jae-hyuk with his gang. A cold finger taps against Jae-hyuk's chin, delivering a deathly whisper right into his ear. A heavy fist crashes down, the pain nearly suffocating him. But in a split second, Sangbom wears a smile, gently patting his head. "Don't worry, I'm done. I'm not that bad." The schizophrenic shift sends chills down his spine. Before the pain subsides, Sangbom leans in closer, his tone sickeningly intimate. His viper-like eyes lock onto Jae-hyuk. "Heard you're good at studying. Do me a favor? The real nightmare is just beginning." Mockery buzzes around him like flies. They study this high-scoring loser like a zoo animal. Jae-hyuk tries to deflect, but Sangbom cuts him off brutally. Footsteps close in, sealing off any escape. The trap springs shut. Sangbom's hand clamps onto Jae-hyuk's shoulder like a vice as he delivers the malicious demand, "Make me cheat sheets for the exam." Jae-hyuk's pupils tremble, cold sweat instantly soaking his back. Jae-hyuk tries to resist. Getting caught means ruin for him too. But Sangbom doesn't care. He laughs maniacally, using his own mother as leverage. "I just need to pass to leave this country." The madman's logic is utterly despairing. Another thug in a red cap closes in, spitting insults directly into Jae-hyuk's face. "Helping or not, you son of a bitch?" The noose tightens around his neck, forward or backward. Only an abyss awaits. Hesitation is met with a brutal fist. The impact echoes down the corridor as Jae-hyuk collapses, screaming. Pain surges through him like electricity, leaving him curled on the cold floor like a lamb awaiting slaughter. The thug squats down, wearing a hideous grin of victory, and asks again. "Last chance. Yes or no?" Jae-hyuk clutches his collar, trembling, as sweat and tears drip onto the floor, whispering a desperate plea. I'll do it. Dignity crumbles completely before violence. Sangbom smiles with satisfaction, a smile that cuts like a knife. Jae-hyuk screams silently, unable to understand why the world is so cruel to him. Even submission doesn't stop the violence. Lower your eyes. Fists fly again, each blow trampling his last shreds of dignity, until he is too broken to even look up at his cursed fate. Finally, the beating stops. Jae-hyuk kneels alone, clutching his bleeding nose, his body convulsing uncontrollably. He begins apologizing to the empty air, the ingrained servility making him sick to his stomach. Sangbom walks away satisfied, laughing with his friends as if he had just stepped on an ant. Behind them, Jae-hyuk is left like trash on the cold corridor floor, with only the echoes of their mockery remaining. Blood drips onto his collar, a brand of shame. Jae-hyuk bites his lip, a frantic thought igniting deep within for the first time. Screw being a model student. If only I could fight. If only I could crush these bastards myself. The blood-red sunset is slowly swallowed by the night. The scene shifts to a quiet home, where the sizzling of food in a pan momentarily masks the pain and bloodshed of the day. Go call Minchai for dinner. His mother's command sends Jae-hyuk into instant panic. The boy contemplating revenge moments ago is now blushing and fumbling, terrified at the mere thought of speaking to a girl. He drags his heavy feet up the stairs, each step feeling like a march to the gallows. Standing before her door, he takes a deep breath and knocks with a trembling hand. After a heavy silence, a cool voice answers from within, "Enter." Mistaking a command for an invitation, Jae-hyuk pushes the door open, only to freeze. Minchai stands in a towel, and his fantasy shatters instantly under her murderous glare. Fueled by humiliation, Minchai hurls a kettle with lethal precision. Metal meets skull with a sickening crunch, and Jae-hyuk hits the floor, silenced by the sheer force of the impact. The world spins and spirals, as Jae-hyuk lies dazed on the floor. Before he can recover, a foot plants firmly on his stomach, crushing his confused groans back into his throat. "Wake up, loser!" Minchi's scream cuts through the haze. She grinds her heel into him, forcing a pained gasp from his lungs as reality hits him hard. Hands on hips, Minchai unleashes a torrent of accusations. Her face burns with embarrassment, but her eyes blaze with fury at the pervert, cowering on her floor. Jae-hyuk cowers on his knees, sweating profusely as he stammers out the truth: it was just a dinner invitation. Minchai issues a bone-chilling threat: do it again, and she'll tear him limb from limb. The scene shifts abruptly from violence to warmth. Minchai transforms into the perfect guest, charming Jae-hyuk's mother, leaving Jae-hyuk speechless and sweating at the terrifying contrast. Watching Minchai lavish praise on the stew, Jae-hyuk shudders internally. He knows all too well that the mouth currently smiling so sweetly was just threatening to tear him apart moments ago. When asked why she lives alone, Minchai shyly admits the truth: she's here to study. Jae-hyuk freezes, his chopsticks halting in midair. A violent delinquent studying? Minchai drops a bombshell to explain her motivation. Her grandfather promised her a building if she gets into a Seoul university. It's not just study, it's a fight for a massive inheritance. While Jae-hyuk seethes with jealousy, Minchai explains her lack of academic foundation due to her rural upbringing. She seems sincere, but the building owner goal overshadows everything. A realization strikes Jae-hyuk like lightning. She needs a tutor? He sits up straighter. The solution is right here at this table, and the gears in his head start turning. His mother proudly declares him the #1 student, and Minchi's jaw drops. She stares at the trembling, frail boy in disbelief. Him? The top student? Dinner ends amidst chaotic family banter. Minchai bows politely, but as she turns to leave, her expression shifts. The politeness fades, replaced by a calculating look as she spots an opportunity. At the door, the mask drops. Minchai grabs Jae-hyuk's shoulder, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Hey, loser! We need to talk." The night is far from over. Footsteps echo in the dim stairwell. Minchai lights a cigarette, slumping into the corner. The air grows heavy with blue smoke and a suffocating silence. Through the smoke, Minchai looks up, her gaze sharp and demanding. "Teach me how to study." It sounds less like a request and more like an order from a predator to its prey. "No!" Jae-hyuk refuses, terrified but firm. Minchai panics, shouting promises of sharing her future building, but Jae-hyuk stands his ground on the stairs, looking down on her desperation. "I hate thugs!" Jae-hyuk drops the harsh truth and turns his back, walking away. Minchai is left alone at the bottom of the stairs, the rejection stinging in the cold night air. Just as Minchai thinks she's lost, Jae-hyuk shouts from the top of the stairs, a smirk on his face. "Fine! Then find me a girlfriend! A hot one!" He's not principled, he's just lonely. The air in the stairwell freezes. Jae-hyuk spits out venomous lies to humiliate her, each word a needle piercing the silent Minchai. He steps closer, savoring this twisted sense of power. Despite a moment of hesitation, vanity wins out as he continues his taunts. Suddenly, his gaze shifts to the rainy street below, where menacing figures emerge. Jae-hyuk gasps, recognizing the dangerous thugs. Meanwhile, a greedy hand reaches for Minchai, the lewd catcalls cutting through the rain. Minchai tries to refuse, but they ignore her. Jae-hyuk frantically tries to intervene, only to watch helplessly as a thick arm clamps onto Minchai. Trembling, he fumbles for his phone. He must call the police. Minchai seems to comply to protect herself, but the thug pushes his luck, violently gripping her wrist. The sheer physical dominance creates a suffocating sense of despair. Suddenly, the big guy shoves Minchai violently against the wall with a dull thud. Hiding nearby, Jae-hyuk is paralyzed with terror, unable to hit the call button in time. In a split second, the tables turn. Minchai's knee crashes into his face like a cannonball, the massive impact leaving everyone dumbfounded, Jae-hyuk forgetting to breathe. Facing the swarming accomplices, Minchai doesn't flinch, instantly dropping into a professional fighting stance. Her aura transforms completely. She's like a different person. Fists fly, precise and deadly. Amidst the dull thuds of bone on flesh, the arrogant thugs are battered bloody, completely unable to fight back. Dust settles as Minchai stands proudly over the fallen bodies. The night breeze blows, but the chill in her eyes is more terrifying than the rain. The remaining big guy, still processing the shock, erupts into a furious roar, trying to mask his fear with sheer volume. He frantically brags about his strength and rank, but it's meaningless. Minchai leaps into the air, a devastating stomp instantly crushing his bravado. 3 massive men lie at her feet, reduced to stepping stones. Witnessing this monstrous combat power, Jae-hyuk's legs turn to jelly as he instinctively retreats. Jae-hyuk's worldview crumbles. This idiot who can't do elementary math is actually a martial arts master who instantly cleared the field. The intense contrast leaves his mind blank. Just then, Minchai spots the shivering Jae-hyuk. She shakes her stinging hand, and instead of boasting, casually scolds him for not calling the police. "What sport do you actually do?" Facing Jae-hyuk's trembling question, Minchai stands in the dim alley, answering with clear, determined eyes. "Martial arts." Looking at the fallen thugs, Jae-hyuk's memory is instantly pulled back to his darkest moments of being bullied. The pain of fists landing on his body feels vivid once again. But this time, fear doesn't drown him. Instead, it ignites a crazy idea. Clenching his fists amidst painful memories, he realizes this might be the only chance to change his fate. He lifts his head, cowardice fading from his eyes. "Lee Minchai, I'll teach you to study." On this blood-soaked street after the rain, he cries out from his soul. "In return, teach me how to fight." Flashback to that insane proposal in the dim ruins. She actually offered to trade fighting skills for tutoring. It sounded like pure fantasy. Hearing the offer, Jae-hyuk's mind went straight to the gutter, imagining suffocating physical contact, only to be met with Minchai's disgusted rebuke. But reality was harsh. Minchai coldly rejected him, crushing his hope underfoot with a single sentence, "I don't make deals with losers." Late that night, Jae-hyuk tossed and turned, the memory of that brutal knee strike replaying in his mind an overwhelming aesthetic of violence he'd never seen before. If only I could do that. A spark of desire to become strong ignited within him. He clenched his fist. Her unreachable silhouette was his only lifeline. The next morning, his mother's command struck terror into him. Deliver breakfast to the scary tenant. He stood at her door, heart pounding, cold sweat dripping. The moment he entered, Jae-hyuk's heart nearly stopped. Min-chai's state of undress plunged him into instant terror and extreme awkwardness. Amidst chaotic screams, he tried to drop the sandwich and flee, but as he turned, a pile of out-of-place books on the desk caught his eye. Are those first-grade textbooks? The invincible fighter is learning to read from scratch? Discovering this shocking secret, his pupils trembled. The moment the secret was out, shame turned Min-chai into a rampaging beast. She charged at him, roaring with murderous intent. Facing her furious eviction, Jae-hyuk trembled and retreated. Yet, on the edge of fear, he realized this might be his only leverage to restart the deal. Kicked out, and on the brink of despair, his mother's nagging and that absurd secret swirled in his mind. Just then, the atmosphere behind the door shifted. Min-chai rushed out and stopped him. Her arrogance vanished, replaced by surprising urgency and the awkwardness of having to swallow her pride. She finally broke down and admitted she was rejected by every cram school. In front of this illiterate fighter, Jae-hyuk saw his chance. Get me into college, and I'll teach you to fight. This time, hesitation vanished from their eyes. The pact between the strongest tutor and weakest student is sealed. But the tutoring session imploded instantly. Faced with an illiterate who doesn't even know this academic mission started at hell-level difficulty. If the brain fails, use fists. Min-chai instantly switched vibes, dragging the confused Jae-hyuk into her domain. To win, you must master intel first. Perched atop the wall, they locked eyes on their prey below the red-haired bully Jo Sangbom. The tension of a real-world lesson filled the air. But the cool factor didn't last. Jae-hyuk's arms gave out, and they crashed clumsily into enemy territory. Covert recon instantly turned into an awkward disaster. Min-chai drags a skeptical Jae-hyuk to a secluded stairwell. Facing his doubts about becoming stronger, she exhales a ring of smoke, her gaze scornful yet certain. Shut up and watch. This is your first lesson. Just as Jae-hyuk tries to retort, the air freezes. Heavy footsteps echo from afar as the true predators arrive. A mob of delinquents radiating violence floods the scene, bringing instant, suffocating pressure. Jae-hyuk instinctively pulls up his hood, hiding in the shadows. As a loser at the bottom of the food chain, he knows the rules. The weak aren't even allowed to watch. The crowd stirs, the show begins. In the center, Jo Sangbom spits venomous insults, mocking his opponent's injured friend. Provoked beyond reason, the victim snaps, roaring as he swings a fist, walking right into the trap. The gap in skill is brutal. Sangbom dodges with a savage grin and counters with a devastating kick. With a sickening thud, his opponent crashes to the ground, crumpling in agony. But that's not enough. Basking in the cheers, Sangbom lines up the fallen boy's head like a soccer ball. In that moment, Jae-hyuk sees not a fight, but unilateral slaughter and humiliation. The brutality escalates. Ignoring pleas for mercy, Sangbom crushes the boy's fingers and grabs a fire extinguisher. The mix of blood and scream shatters Jae-hyuk's mental defenses completely. On the night street, Jae-hyuk collapses, cold sweat soaking his body. Having witnessed such overwhelming violence, despair drowns him. I can't win. How can someone like me defeat a monster like that? Shut up, loser. Min-chai cuts through his self-pity with fury. On this desperate night, she gives an ultimatum. Just 1 month. Trust me and fight, or stay a piece of trash forever. Jae-hyuk stares at his trembling hands, fear and desire warring within him. Reason calls it suicide, but the soul that refuses to live on its knees is screaming faintly in the dark. I have nothing left to lose anyway. His fist clenches tight, nails digging into his palm. He bets his remaining dignity on a life-changing decision. Time flies 1 month later. As the battle nears, fear returns. Jae-hyuk trembles in the stairwell, his body instinctively rejecting the violence. Min-chae has to lash out at his weakness again, forcing him to stand tall. Inside the exam room, a silent war begins. Min-chae stealthily passes a folded note, her eyes gleaming with cunning and ferocity. This is the fuse that will ignite everything. Meanwhile, Jae-hyuk writes furiously, the scratching of his pen unsettling Jo Sangbom. This uncharacteristic confidence sparks a flicker of unease in the bully used to looking down on him. The note slides onto Sangbom's desk. The air freezes as he reads the provocation. "Let's fight, you piece of sh*t. Shocked, Sangbom looks up, locking eyes with Jae-hyuk's burning gaze. "Jo Sangbom, you're finished." Min-chae watches with a satisfied smirk. Fear has transformed into bloodlust. The prey finally bares its fangs at the hunter. Rewind 1 month to day 1 of training. The training is sprinting upstairs with Min-chae on his back. Lungs burning, every step is a grueling test of his physical limits. Faster. This is part of fighting. Min-chae relaxes on his back, treating him like a human chair. Jae-hyuk struggles on the brink of collapse, humiliated yet forced to grit his teeth and endure. Not just cardio, but a hellish bulking plan. At the spicy rice cake king, Min-chae forces him to gorge. Weight is power, eat. Amidst the agony of overeating, Jae-hyuk's transformation begins. In the restaurant, Min-chae devours everything in sight. Moments later on the street, Jae-hyuk resigns himself to carrying his demon mentor, unaware that a pile of combat gear awaits him on the rooftop. Facing the pile of gear, Min-chae orders him to scatter it. Jae-hyuk drifts into a fantasy about the busted old friend who sent it, only to be caught by Min-chae's mocking smirk. Fantasy shattered. Min-chae changes into training gear, her aura shifting instantly. Before Jae-hyuk can react, a sharp kick tears through the air, the wind messing his hair. Hell training begins. 1-2 low kick. Do it for 3 weeks. Facing this monotonous command, Jae-hyuk hesitates, but Min-chae's icy stare forces him to comply. He grits his teeth and roars, igniting his fighting spirit. From the blazing sun to the falling dusk, sweat soaks his clothes. Jae-hyuk punches and kicks tirelessly, his movements turning from awkward to mechanical, his body teetering on the edge but never stopping. 2 weeks of grinding have washed away the fear in his eyes. Jae-hyuk's punches now whistle through the air, his kicks sharp and solid. The loser is slowly transforming. With the basics solid, Min-chae introduces a new lesson, the tackle. Jae-hyuk naively thinks of soccer, earning a look of utter disdain from his mentor. "Don't you read webtoons? Try to take me down." Jae-hyuk charges with full force, only to slam into an immovable tree trunk. The impact sends him flying, while Min-chae stands firm, her eyes dancing with amusement. Clutching his bleeding nose in pain, Jae-hyuk barely recovers before Min-chae announces a role swap. Terrified of being tackled by this monster, he cowers behind a mat, trembling. True hell descends. Weighted planks, stair runs carrying her, princess carry squats. Min-chae becomes a ruthless overseer, draining every last drop of Jae-hyuk's stamina. Then comes the no-holds-barred sparring. Jae-hyuk is knocked down time and again, rising under the setting sun. The physical pain is forging a steel shell capable of withstanding violence. In exchange, Jae-hyuk endures exhaustion to tutor Min-chae every night. Just like that, a month passes. When he faces the provocateur again, the eyes behind his glasses no longer flinch. The showdown nears. Despite the cold sweat under Min-chae's gaze, Jae-hyuk takes a deep breath and suppresses his fear. In the distance, Jo Sangbom waits with a cruel smile, ready for his prey. His heart thunders in his ears, tension threatening to explode from his chest. In this moment, all his training faces the final judgment. Surrounded by murmurs and ridicule, Jae-hyuk walks alone through the crowd. Every step echoes with his heavy heartbeat. He must face that nightmare. Flashback to the night before the fight. In a dark alley, Min-chae lights a cigarette, watches Jae-hyuk trembling uncontrollably, and coldly commands, "Take off your shirt." On his slender frame, the lines of his abs are now clearly visible. Pointing at this armor forged in sweat, Minchai snaps, "Trust your body. Don't lose in your mind before the fight even starts." As if to give him one last shot of adrenaline, Minchai blushes, turns away, and makes a promise. "If you win, I'll call you by your name." Jae-hyuk gulps, his eyes shifting instantly. As a token, she shoves a lighter into his hand. Gripping the cold metal, Jae-hyuk's palm is still soaked in sweat, but within his fear, he finally finds a pivot of strength. Heart pounding violently, fear threatens to drown his sanity. Just as he nears collapse, Minchai's cold voice pierces the panic. "You only lose if you lose mentally." Ignited by those words, he grits his teeth and charges forward, footsteps heavy with resolve. Yet reality is suffocatingly cruel. Facing Jo Sangbom's scornful sneer and the crowd's piercing laughter, Jae-hyuk's newfound courage wavers instantly, his body trembling uncontrollably like a lamb awaiting slaughter. The crowd watches, like bloodthirsty spectators, phones raised to record the humiliation. Jo Sangbom revels in his dominance, stepping closer with mocking words. "How many hits do you want?" The air is thick with sickening malice. Just as fear threatens to consume him, Minchai's lesson on momentum flashes through his mind. Forcing down his tremors, Jae-hyuk's gaze sharpens as he retorts. "I'll hit you 100 times whatever you say." In this moment, the psychological tide turns. The provocation ignites the fight. Jo Sangbom swings a heavy fist with a twisted grin, the wind whistling sharply. Though defending clumsily, Jae-hyuk locks eyes with his opponent. Even at a disadvantage, the fire of resistance burns in his gaze. This is just the beginning. The training moves were perfect in memory, but reality delivers a crushing blow. Pain shoots through his body as Jae-hyuk painfully realizes the physical gap, while Jo Sangbom gleefully enjoys his praise struggle. Violence rains down like a storm, each of Jo Sangbom's strikes accompanied by humiliating roars. Jae-hyuk, battered and dazed, feels dragged back into that dark corner of helplessness, despair washing over him once again. Bystanders gossip coldly, as if watching a boring show. Jae-hyuk falls to his knees, covering his head, dignity trampled into the dust, uttering only a faint plea, "Enough, please." Jo Sangbom feigns an apology, only to reveal a demonic grin the moment Jae-hyuk lets his guard down. A vicious kick lands heavily, shattering any illusion of mercy, as cruel laughter echoes across the rooftop. "How can I stop? This is too fun." Jo Sangbom continues the assault like a mad dog. Amidst the relentless blows, Jae-hyuk feels a profound helplessness. Was all the training meaningless? Can he truly do nothing? On the verge of collapse, his mind snaps back to that gray dusk. Minchai's words boom in his head. "If you lose the mental battle, then you're truly finished." This singular belief becomes his last lifeline. During the training, Minchai had suddenly choked him, forcing him to memorize the fear of suffocation. Now, that deathly pressure makes him uncannily lucid, his body instinctively seeking an opening to strike back. If that happens, grab him tight. The Minner's command turns into action. Jae-hyuk stops hiding. Even if he dies, he'll take a piece with him. Braving the rain of fists, he lunges desperately at his arrogant opponent. Victory by any means necessary. Even dirty tricks like biting an ear. In this life or death moment, Jae-hyuk abandons all decency and rules. Right now, he is simply a beast fighting for survival. Now! In the split second his opponent is distracted by pain, Jae-hyuk roars and unleashes the combo he practiced 1,000 times. 1. The dull thud of impact sounds the war horn of the underdog. 2. The second punch follows instantly, landing perfectly. Jo Sangbom stumbles back, and the crowd goes dead silent. Panting heavily, Jae-hyuk's eyes burn with an unprecedented madness. "Bastard, we're just getting started." That beautiful 1-2 combo shattered not just the glass, but the myth of Jo Sangbom's invincibility. The onlookers stand aghast, unable to believe the so-called loser actually threw a fist of rebellion. Blood trickles down Jo Sangbom's face, pain fueling his rage. But Jae-hyuk doesn't pause. He knows this is just the start. Minchai's next tactic flashes in his mind now. It's time to end this. If striking isn't enough, use this. Memory overlaps with reality as Minchai's double-leg takedown is unleashed. Jae-hyuk launches like a cannonball into his opponent, betting everything on this one move. As Minchai explains the technique in French, she lunges without warning, slamming her shoulder into him with a force that leaves him writhing on the ground in agony. Jae-hyuk hesitates at the dirty tactic, but Minchai cuts him off sharply. Against a predator like Jo Sangbom, honor is a luxury he cannot afford if he wants to survive. Seizing the split second Jo Sangbom is distracted, Jae-hyuk's eyes narrow. He dives low and drives his shoulder into his opponent's groin with explosive force. The sheer force sends the arrogant bully flying, slamming him against the wall with a sickening thud that leaves the stunned crowd gasping in disbelief. Years of suppressed rage erupt like a volcano. Jae-hyuk rains down punches, screaming out his despair over a stolen normal life with every brutal strike. Pinned to the ground and gasping for air, Jo Sangbom stares up in disbelief, unable to comprehend that the loser he tormented has transformed into a skilled fighter. Jae-hyuk doesn't stop. With a twisted grin, he locks in a guillotine choke, his cold threats of humiliation amplifying the terror as Jo Sangbom feels consciousness slipping away. Searing pain shoots through Jae-hyuk's arm as Jo uses a lighter to break the hold, seizing the moment of agony to violently reverse their positions. The tables turn, but amidst the chaos, a lesson flashes through Jae-hyuk's mind. Disrupt the balance, target the chin, and size won't matter. Minchai's voice echoes in his ears. Jae-hyuk's gaze sharpens into pure focus as he roars, channeling every ounce of strength into a precise strike aimed squarely at Jo's jaw. The sickening crunch of bone on bone resonates through the air. Jo's face distorts in agony as the devastating punch shatters his defense, leaving the onlookers frozen in horror. Dust settles as Jae-hyuk gasps for air, drenched in sweat. Staring down at the unconscious bully amidst the trash, the reality sinks in the loser has actually won. Minchai turns away with a satisfied smirk, claiming her student's victory. Meanwhile, panic sets in for Jae-hyuk, who flees the scene frantically to escape any potential retaliation. Jae-hyuk cries out in triumph, believing his nightmare is over, unaware that this victory is merely the calm before the storm, as a darker shadow watches from the gloom. A massive figure exhales smoke with a contemptuous sneer. To him, the newly victorious Jae-hyuk is nothing more than a stepping stone to prove his own dominance. As the dust settles from the fight, new forces gather in the shadows, and the gears of the story continue to turn. Every second back at school feels like walking on eggshells. Only when the bully's continued absence is confirmed does Jae-hyuk finally dare to exhale, though the fear still lingers. Just as he relaxes, a note smacks him in the face. Reading Minchai's demand for bread, Jae-hyuk realizes with a sigh that to his demonic tutor, he is still just a loser errand boy. The fragile piece shatters instantly as two hulking figures block his path. Their question about Jo Sangbom strikes like a thunderbolt, sending Jae-hyuk's heart racing back into sheer panic. Roars of anger surge like a tide, trapping Kim Jae-hyuk in the center, his terrified eyes darting with nowhere to hide. News spreads like a virus. Mockery and prying eyes prick at his back, making even breathing a struggle. So-called admirers hail him as a hero, but their absurd cheers are brutally cut short by the bullies. Behind the fake smile lie fangs. Jae-hyuk recalls the words in the bathroom even his friend wants to use him as a stepping stone. Meanwhile, hellish training continues. Lee Minchai eats lunch casually on his back, indifferent to his trembling struggle below. Seeing his fear, her gaze turns cold. She strikes a nerve. If you win, be prepared to be challenged by the world. Night falls, and roles reverse. Now she's the student, yet her oppressive aura remains undiminished. The suffocating tutoring begins. Staring at the abysmal single-digit grades, Jae-hyuk's jaw drops. This is more despairing than taking a beating. Just as tensions peak, Mom walks in. Lee Minchai instantly switches masks, becoming the sweet girl next door. The moment the door closes, the demon returns. Stomping on the desk, her glare screams, "Peel the apple or die." It's a long night. Teaching her is torture, worse than fighting. Jae-hyuk can't help but call her an idiot in his head. Memory drifts to that dim alley. Amidst the smoke, he plucked up the courage to make a bet. If I win, stop calling me a loser. She smiles and keeps her promise, but the name she calls out is a stranger's Kim Jae-young. The touching moment freezes instantly. Before the awkwardness of correcting his name fades, a real nightmare approaches. A chill runs down his spine in the classroom. The massive Hong Daebong usurps his seat, sniffing him like a beast stalking prey, his words dripping with sickening provocation. Let's fight. A declaration of war without reason. A loud slap across the face shatters any room for reasoning. No time to argue. A heavy fist smashes into his face. Pain instantly reawakens the body's trauma. He crashes to the floor, trembling as he looks up at the massive shadow. Despair coils around his heart. How can I beat this monster? Jae-hyuk collapses, sweat of despair mixing with fear soaking his back. Hong Daebong's piercing mockery echoes through the classroom, sealing his fate as a loser and making even the thought of resistance seem pale. The next day, hell continues. Hong Daebong arrogantly steps on Jae-hyuk's head, laughing wildly like he's showing off a trophy, while Jae-hyuk can only let out a powerless scream under cold gazes, his dignity trampled. Cruelty escalates as Hong Daebong forces a struggling bug into Jae-hyuk's mouth. A slap strikes his face hard, accompanied by the roar "I rule here," as violence utterly collapses Jae-hyuk's world. Why me? Jae-hyuk cries out in a tearful breakdown. But the only response is Hong Daebong's sickening grin. In this dog-eat-dog world, bullying needs no reason, only amusement. Twilight dyes the sky blood red as Jae-hyuk kneels in the mud, staring at his blood-stained hands. He painfully realizes defeating one bully changed nothing. True despair drowns him like a tide. Night falls. Though back in the apparent safety of home, the shadow over Jae-hyuk's heart remains. That terrifying predator has become a nightmare he cannot shake, making even the air feel oppressive. That pig-like guy, how could I possibly win? Jae-hyuk cowers in the corner, denying himself, until Min-chae appears with her usual cold sarcasm, piercing right through his excuses. Is there a way to win? Please tell me. Jae-hyuk grasps at the straw, eyes reigniting with longing. Min-chae looks at her phone and slowly says, "We need special equipment." Min-chae makes a mysterious call. Jae-hyuk fantasizes about a superheroine on the other end, only to hear a lazy, suggestive voice, instantly turning the tension into something weird and awkward. Take the phone, loser. Min-chae ruthlessly hands it over. Jae-hyuk flusters, faced with this sudden socializing and the dominance on the other end. He's so nervous he can barely speak, face flushing red. Mockery from the other end hits like a barrage, making Jae-hyuk want to vomit on the spot. And right after this chaos, a cardboard box marked with a mysterious code arrives quietly, breaking the noise. This is the key to your victory. Jae-hyuk tremblingly opens the box. Cut to 3 weeks later, he stands before that nightmare of a man, his back radiating resolve, but inviting new danger. Hong Daebong laughs hysterically at the comical giant gloves. Mockery rises all around, but Jae-hyuk's eyes are cold. He knows this is no drill, but a fight for survival. This is the only way I can win. Jae-hyuk raises the heavy giant fists, his roar drowning out the mockery. Even the usually composed Min-chae wears a look of disbelief. The boy is awakening like a beast. Time rewinds to 3 weeks ago. Before that duel began, everything started with that confusing moment on the rooftop, and that crazy bet on victory. This is ridiculous, right? Looking at the giant gloves in the box, Jae-hyuk's face screams resistance. But under Min-chae's trash-viewing gaze, he grits his teeth and puts them on. Training starts! Before the words land, the bat in Min-chae's hand strikes with a gust of wind. Jae-hyuk realizes with horror this isn't practice, it's a death wish, and fear crawls over him instantly. The massive impact sends Jae-hyuk flying, his scream echoing from the rooftop. Min-chae's eyes hold no pity, only a cold command. Stand your ground. If you don't want to die, start this hellish training. With a command, the hellish training begins. From duck walking to school to holding an invisible chair in class and even on the toilet, dignity shatters, under the weight of extreme muscle pain. Worse yet, he becomes her living chair. His legs tremble at their limit until he finally collapses, only to be accused of falling on purpose by his ruthless tutor. 2 weeks later, the stakes rise. Minchai swings the baseball bat with lethal force, but this time, he grits his teeth through the fear and withstands the impact. The moment of truth arrives. Minchai gives a nod of approval, while the massive, cigarette-smoking opponent looms ahead, radiating a terrifying intent to crush him. A colossal fist crashes down like a sledgehammer. The air shudders and his arms scream in pain, but under this suffocating force, he grits his teeth and refuses to fall. He blocked it. The crowd gasps, and disbelief washes over the bully's face. Jae-hyuk smirks, suppressing his trembling, and coldly returns the provocation. Enraged and humiliated, the opponent goes berserk, unleashing a storm of punches. Jae-hyuk turtles up, barely weathering the hurricane of blows raining down on him. Just as his defenses act to crumble, Minchai's voice echoes in his mind. Big guys tire fast. You just need to survive this hell for 30 seconds. 27-28. 30. The giant slows down, heavy panting betraying his exhaustion. The window opens. Now is the time to strike. Seizing the moment of sluggishness, Jae-hyuk lunges forward, slamming his forehead into the bully's face with all his might. The sickening crack of impact echoes through the air. Promotional page, no narrative content. The headbutt lands with brutal precision. As Minchai taught, no matter the size, a solid hit to the jaw shuts the lights out. Victory seems certain. The opponent's eyes roll back. He's out cold. But instead of falling backward, his massive frame collapses forward like a toppling tower, straight onto Jae-hyuk. A nightmare scenario. The violent impact of the fall jars the beast awake. Pinned helplessly underneath, Jae-hyuk watches in despair as the bully bares his fangs once more. The tables turn instantly, victory morphing into a one-sided execution. Trapped and immobile, he's surrounded by the crowd's jeers and the ruthless wind of punches. Meanwhile, a casual figure emerges at the back of the crowd. Sophomore Han Philip watches the chaos unfold with a playful, predatory smirk. For this senior, the bloody struggle is mere entertainment. He excitedly comments on the fight, utterly indifferent to the junior fighting for his life. The brutality escalates, every punch delivered with lethal intent. Blood splatters, and the violence becomes so gruesome that even the spectators begin to fear for his life. As consciousness fades, Minchai's cold voice pierces the darkness. He recalls that afternoon in the living room, asking her about the only way out of this exact dead-end grappling. As Minchai delivers her cold verdict, terror grips him. Getting pinned by that 100 kilograms beast is a death sentence with no hope of escape. Awkward tension shatters as Minchai snaps at his misunderstanding, forcing focus back to the brutal reality of their ground fighting training. Meanwhile, in the ring, punches rain down as Hong Daebong roars his cruel law of survival, crushing dignity along with bone and flesh. Rejecting the loser's destiny with a silent scream, he snaps back to reality, absorbing the crucial technique, bend the leg to find leverage. Theory transforms into instinct as he executes the bridge, finding that sliver of space to slide out and reclaim his freedom. The crowd gasps at the impact, but Jae-hyuk knows blunt force is futile. He dashes across the floor, hunting for a tactical opening. Left jab, right jab, straight. The rhythmic thud of impact silences the crowd as the once arrogant opponent stumbles back in pain. Chaos erupts as a massive weight crashes onto his back, attempting to crush him, but panic quickly gives way to calculated tactic. The nightmare escalates as the giant looms with massive gloves ignited in fury, sending a paralyzing wave of terror through Jae-hyuk. In a world teeming with fighters, countless stories unfold simultaneously, but this battle for dignity is just the tip of the iceberg. Suffocation sets in as the giant's hand clamps down like a vice on his neck, mocking laughter preceding a devastating blow with no escape. With a roar promising bloodshed, the massive fist connects. Despite the desperate block, the sheer impact sends him flying like a ragdoll. Pain blurs his vision, as he crashes down in humiliation, yet he grits his teeth against the shame and agony to rise again. It's not over. Instinct screams to run from the approaching monster, but mid-flight, a sudden realization strikes him like lightning. Why not fight back? Minchai's mockery unveils the truth. He's been training with 10 kilograms of weighted gloves. Without realizing it, he has evolved. Faced with a skull-crushing blow, his body moves faster than thought. He slips the punch with impossible lightness, shocking even himself. The enemy moves in slow motion. Unshackled, he unleashes a lightning-fast counter-combo that leaves the spectator stunned. But reality hits hard. Despite the barrage of punches, his attacks bounce off the giant's massive frame like harmless mosquito bites. Memories flood back. Minchai's voice cuts through the panic when force fails against mass. Aim for the one spot that can't be hardened. Tactical analysis instantly shifts to offense. Jaehyuk's gaze sharpens as a whip-like kick strikes the opponent's exposed knee joint. Hong Daebong swings blindly in rage, hitting nothing but air, sinking into despair as fatigue and relentless knee strikes take their toll. The knee again! Jaehyuk strikes like a relentless machine, chiseling away at the same wound until Hong's defense crumbles in agony. Fear saturates the air. A mere feint makes the arrogant giant flinch, while a new command echoes in the twilight. Seizing the moment, Hong retreats in pain. Lee Minchai's cold voice echoes in his mind. Target the next weakness, the solar plexus. Fist howling through the air, Jaehyuk's punch erupts like a volcano, slamming into Hong's abdomen with a dull, bone-shaking thud. In the dark of night, a lone wolf's gaze watches, signaling that this fight is merely the prelude to a deeper darkness. Memory flashes back to that dusk, Minchai coldly pointing out the body's kill switches, every lesson now forging his resolve. Theory becomes reality as the massive body crashes to its knees. Jaehyuk stares at his fist, the proof of the weak overturning the strong. Images of the brutal rainy night training flash by the jaw-shattering flying knee, honed countless times on the edge of life and death. The massive impact sends Hong flying, spinning in weightlessness before crashing into the ground like a sack of wet clay. It is over. I won! Jaehyuk gasps in disbelief, while the surrounding crowd erupts from shock into a mix of mockery and awe. From the steps above, the true predators simply watch with cold eyes. To them, this is nothing more than a low-level farce for amusement. With no victor's pose, Jaehyuk turns and sprints away under Kwok Hansel's icy stare, knowing this would only invite greater trouble. Some mock, but others witness the miracle from the shadows. The gleam of adoration in a girl's eyes might be the only light in this dark school. The scene cuts to a dark corner. The Invincible's hideout is thick with smoke, and oppressive whispers hint that this is the true core of school power. Footsteps break the gloom as the silver-haired boy in a sharp suit enters with a smile. Han Philip's arrival freezes the air, his aura of kingship undeniable. Number 2, Daniel, closes his book, calmly reporting his observations of the fight as if discussing a trivial curiosity. Hearing of Hong Daebong's defeat, Philip's lips curl into an amused smile. Looks interesting. The hunter has finally found new prey. Conspiracies brew in the shadows as the silver-haired boy decides to watch and wait. Time passes. The city settles into night, while in a cramped room, the stifling pressure of exams fills the air. Jaehyuk throws down his pen in frustration, unable to hide his anxiety from Minchai. It's been 3 days since he defeated Hong Daebong, but the viral video of a loser beating a bully has pushed him into the eye of the storm. His peaceful school life is shattered, transforming him into a spectacle for the entire school. Surrounded by challengers and mockers, Jaehyuk feels suffocated by the unwanted attention. This isn't honor, it's a never-ending nightmare. Why won't this nightmare end? Minchai pierces through his despair with the cold truth. He still looks like a victim. Her words cut deep, forcing Jaehyuk to confront his own trembling soul. To stop being prey, one must become a predator. Listening to Minchai's command to win overwhelmingly, the terror in Jaehyuk's eyes fades, replaced by a trembling yet resolve to fight to the bitter end. Just as he steels himself for the next challenge, fate plays a cruel joke. A stranger's voice breaks his concentration. An orange-haired boy bursts in with a cynical smile, his casual, "Hello," instantly tightening the tension in the air. An overwhelming sense of oppression crashes down as the stranger's towering presence mocks him like a lamb to the slaughter. Jae-hyuk's pupils quake with terror, instinctively sensing an unknown danger from this sudden predator. The roar of an engine tears through the night as Kwok Han-sol speeds through the streets in a stolen luxury car. Cigarette dangling from his lips, he sneers at his friend's awe, showing utter contempt for his father and the rules. The speedometer dances wildly, matching his inflated ambition. Brushing off questions about his transfer with a sneer, Han-sol boasts of his past status as number 2, reveling in the thrill of speeding on the edge of life and death. Fighting is for idiots, Han-sol sneers as he reveals his survival philosophy in this dog-eat-dog world. True predators rely not on fists, but on manipulation and a keen sense of smell. Cruel light flickers in his eyes as he likens his target to a weak herbivore. He doesn't need the strongest opponent. He seeks a specific sacrifice to boost his fame, one he can devour alive. He describes his prey as a nutritious snack, his words dripping with twisted pleasure. Dismissing his companion's mockery of his fighting skills, he casually mentions 6 months of boxing brief, but enough to fuel his warped confidence. When asked if such a perfect prey exists at his new school, the smile on Hansel's face deepens. It is the look of a predator locking onto a target in the dark, cunning and cold. The lucky guy, who defeated Zhou Sangbom and Hong Daebong, is the perfect stepping stone. As the image freezes on Jae-hyuk's seemingly harmless face, Han-sol licks his lips. The hunting game has officially begun. Back in the noisy corridor, Han-sol drags his feet, creating an unsettling sound. With an exaggerated wave and theatrical flair, he delivers a friendly greeting to a stunned Jae-hyuk. "Let's be friends." Behind these seemingly warm words lies a bottomless trap. Jae-hyuk feigns calm on the surface, but a storm rages within. He recognizes the dangerous aura behind that face and instinctively wants to flee. Han-sol changes tactics, casting a deadly lure praise. Feigning admiration for the movie-like fight, he uses sweet words to dismantle Jae-hyuk's psychological defenses, dragging him from terror into confusion. The tactic works. Jae-hyuk, starved for recognition, tears up the moment he hears, "You were amazing!" Like a child longing for candy, he hands over his name and trust wrapped in false kindness. As they shake hands, Jae-hyuk basks in the warmth of long-lost friendship, blind to the fleeting sneer on Hansel's face as he turns away. The prey is ensnared. The cruel hunt masquerading as friendship has just begun. Under the city lights, Kwok Han-sol grins maliciously, plotting his betrayal. Meanwhile, oblivious to the danger, Jae-hyuk patiently tutors Min-chai in the safety of her room. Haunted by Hansel's fake smile, Jae-hyuk feels lost in his definition of friendship. Confused, he looks to Min-chai, desperate to understand what a real friend actually is. Min-chai scoffs, claiming she needs no friends in Seoul, only grades. But her indifference shatters instantly when Jae-hyuk reveals that her friend is arriving today. The doorbell screams like an alarm. Remembering the description of the well-endowed guest, Jae-hyuk panics and scrambles toward the door at Min-chi's command. His hand trembling over the handle, Jae-hyuk's heart threatens to burst. The mysterious friend is right outside, and the suspense leaves him gasping for air. The phrase "big boobs" echoes in his mind, turning his face crimson. As the door opens, his pupils dilate, tension spiking to its absolute peak. The door swings open to reveal Sarah Hong, exploding with energy. She immediately mocks Jae-hyuk's glasses, her piercing laughter and insults assaulting his eardrums. Sarah tackles Min-chai with a hug, loudly teasing her about her body. Jae-hyuk stands awkwardly on the sidelines, only to become the target of Sarah's crude jokes again. Sarah shockingly offers to let him have a squeeze, sending Jae-hyuk into a panic. Laughing, she lunges, wrapping him in a bear hug that feels more like a capture. The joke turns violent instantly. Sarah pins Jae-hyuk against the wall with a tight triangle choke. Gasping for air, he taps frantically, realizing he's trapped by a demon. Waking from a brief blackout, a confused Jae-hyuk is ordered to pay for food. Soon, the three sit down for dinner, the atmosphere thick with his resignation and defeat. Learning his mother will be gone for 3 days, Jae-hyuk barely processes the news before Sarah magically produces soju, her eyes gleaming with dangerous excitement. Glasses clink as the teenagers let loose. Hours later, reason vanishes, leaving behind a chaotic room filled with passed-out bodies and empty bottles. Fighting heavy eyelids, Jae-hyuk struggles to help a wasted Min-chae into bed. Just as he sighs in relief, heavy footsteps approach from behind, triggering a sudden spike of alarm. Disaster strikes? Jae-hyuk realizes he's trapped in bed, sandwiched between the two girls. The intimate proximity sends his heart racing, his brain completely short-circuiting. To make matters worse, they unconsciously snuggle closer in their sleep, locking him in a vice grip. Unable to move, he screams internally, praying for the night to end. Morning arrives with Sarah's fury. Waking up to the awkward situation, she mercilessly kicks Jae-hyuk off the bed, unleashing a torrent of hungover rage. The awkwardness fades over hangover ramen, until Sarah drops a bombshell, a challenge to spar. Jae-hyuk's stomach drops this time, the fight will be real. Facing Sarah's overwhelming aura, Jae-hyuk tries to psyche himself up with inner monologue, but the cold sweat on his forehead betrays his nervousness. Before he's fully ready, Sarah's question followed by a sudden heavy punch shatters the standoff, terror instantly flooding Jae-hyuk's face. Ha ha ha! Sarah bursts into laughter at her clumsy opponent, her confident cackle echoing under the clear sky, as if this were just a playful game. Screams fill the training ground. Facing Sarah's storm-like continuous attacks, Jae-hyuk is caught off guard, and can only let out desperate wails. That was too sudden! Jae-hyuk protests from the ground, but Sarah just laughs heartily, even provokingly beckoning him. Come at me again, hard suit! Jae-hyuk grits his teeth and launches a counterattack, but is shocked to find his full-force punch effortlessly blocked by Sarah's single hand, unmoving. Unwilling to give up, Jae-hyuk adjusts his distance and dashes forward with a straight punch, but Sarah gracefully leans back, causing the sure hit to whiff completely. Another heavy hit. As the world spins, the collapsed Jae-hyuk groggily catches a whiff of strange fermented soybean paste. You stuck your toes in my nose? Jae-hyuk jumps up in horror, realizing the so-called reward was Sarah's foot odor, nearly making him vomit on the spot. Just then, Min-chae coolly points out the key. Idiot, haven't you noticed? She's a southpaw. This revelation instantly strikes Jae-hyuk, who was still fussing over spelling. Min-chae patiently explains the tactical diagram. The southpaw's unique stance creates a natural distance illusion, which is absolutely devastating for Jae-hyuk, who is used to orthodox opponents. It finally clicks for Jae-hyuk. Recalling his delayed reactions, he realizes he's been walking straight into the muzzle of a counter-hitter. His brain understands, but his body lags behind. With a crisp impact, Sarah's merciless fist imprints itself on his face once again. A few days later, the scene shifts. A flippant whistle echoes in the hallway as a blonde figure struts past, his confidence unsettling. Bam! The basketball slams into a student's head. Kwok Han-sol picks up the ball, wearing a fake, insincere smile. Oops, sorry, thought you were someone else. He hypocritically shoves a snack at the boy as compensation, filled with twisted superiority, as he watches the victim tremble with gratitude. Leaving his toy behind, Han-sol immediately locks eyes on 3 delinquents down the hall, a shrewd calculation flashing in his gaze. Yo guys! He approaches them without fear, skillfully offering cigarettes and conversation, instantly blending into the dangerous circle with his social prowess. Amidst the laughter, he speaks contemptuously of Kim Jae-hyuk, a vicious smirk curling his lips. That guy? He's just an errand boy I trained. In this vibrant world of comics, a journey of passion, growth, and fighting is about to unfold. Hold your breath. This is a chapter for the strong. Kwok Hansol boasts to his peers about treating Jae-hyuk like an errand boy, malice dripping from his smile. In the cafeteria, his arrogance peaks as he spreads rumors, until a sudden realization freezes the air. Spotting Jae-hyuk eating alone, Hansol rises with a mocking grin to prove his dominance. He strides theatrically into the center of the cafeteria, arms raised, preparing a stage for public humiliation. Food and sauce drench Jae-hyuk's head as Hansol feigns a clumsy accident. His apology drips with sarcasm, his hand on Jae-hyuk's shoulder serving as a heavy, silent warning to accept the humiliation. While Hansel's group erupts in mocking laughter behind him, Jae-hyuk retreats to the restroom alone. The water washes away the filth, but cannot rinse the stinging isolation and shame from his skin. Staring at his wretched reflection, Jae-hyuk clings to the memory of Hansel's fake friendship. He desperately tries to convince himself it was an accident, burying his humiliation as he heads to the PC cafe. Hansel's offer to pay only adds to Jae-hyuk's confusion. Suddenly, familiar faces appear: Lee Min-chai and Sarah Hong. Jae-hyuk's heart skips a beat as guilt over his neglected tutoring session crashes down on him. After a sharp, awkward exchange where he is cold-shouldered by the girls, Jae-hyuk turns back to his screen. Urged on by Hansol, he logs into the game, seeking escape from reality in the virtual rift. As the game goes south, Hansel's mask slips completely. He slams the desk and screams in rage, drawing shocked stares. Jae-hyuk shrinks in embarrassment, apologizing while Hansel's aggression spirals out of control. As the commotion settles, Hansel's predatory gaze locks onto the girls nearby. Hearing his lewd comments about Min-chai and Sarah, Jae-hyuk's pupils dilate in shock, a chill running down his spine. Hansol gets increasingly worked up, lost in his fantasy of picking them up. As one of the girls stands, his greedy eyes follow her instantly, oblivious to Jae-hyuk trying to suppress his rising panic. The phone screen frames her retreating figure, aiming for a creep shot. Just before the shutter clicks, a hand shoots out and snatches the device. Hansol looks up, face flushed with shock and disbelief. Though his hand trembles, Jae-hyuk grips Hansel's wrist with surprising firmness, growling, "Don't." Flustered and angry, Hansol tries to shake him off, his questioning voice laced with sudden hostility. Years of suppressed rage erupt. Eyes bloodshot, Jae-hyuk sheds his cowardly shell to protect his friend's dignity, letting out a deafening roar. "She's my friend, you bastard." In the dim light, time seems to freeze. Facing Hansel's shameless act, Jae-hyuk's body shakes violently. His roar is not just a prevention, but a declaration of war against his oppressor. After a violent scuffle, Hansol shoves Jae-hyuk away in disgust, leading with a venomous threat. Jae-hyuk is left panting in the dark, the tension lingering long into the clear light of the next morning. In the school hallway, Hansol slides out in slippers, acting as if the conflict never happened. With a mocking smile, he issues a familiar, bullying command: "Go buy me some bread, buddy." Seeing hesitation, Hansol tries to manipulate him with past favors. But Jae-hyuk's mind echoes with the lewd comments made about Min-chai. Disgust and rage mix, sharpening his gaze into a cold, defiant glare. Pushed to the limit, Jae-hyuk snaps. He refuses the errand and, amidst the mocking laughter of the crowd, delivers a shocking kick that sends the arrogant Hansol crashing to the floor. An awkward silence fills the room. Hansol crouches on the floor, trying to laugh it off as a joke, but his forced smile can't hide the burning humiliation of his shattered pride. Humiliation turns to rage. Hansol corners Jae-hyuk, delivering a sharp slap across his face. Towering over him, he whispers a chilling warning, his eyes promising brutal retribution. Bragging about his violent past, Hansol wears a twisted grin. Dropping the nice guy act, he issues a brutal challenge to the trembling Jae-hyuk, eager for blood. Though his body trembles with fear, Jae-hyuk grits his teeth until they ache. Fighting back tears, he forces out a desperate resolve. "All right, let's fight." Outside, Hansol boasts to his friends about his guaranteed victory, showing off his boxing stance. Yet, deep down, Jae-hyuk's unexpected determination plants a seed of unease in his mind. Paranoia sets in. Unable to shake his fear of the loser, Hansol screams into the void, trying to mask his insecurity with an explosion of manufactured rage. In the shadowy hallway, Hansol pries open Jae-hyuk's locker. With a sadistic grin, he stuffs broken glass into the sneakers, praising his own cunning as he anticipates the bloody result. Despite his friend's warnings, Jae-hyuk stands his ground. Though trembling with sweat-drenched fear and haunted by traumatic memories, he clenches his shaking hands, refusing to run away. Resolve hardened, he steps into the sabotage. Instantly, sharp agony shoots up from his soles, buckling his knees and sending him crashing to the floor in shock. Blood stains his insoles, but he ignores the wound and sprints desperately. The piercing pain is relentless, causing him to lose his footing and tumble violently onto the pavement. Meanwhile, Hansol roars like a beast, patience worn thin. Radiating aggression, he screams for the fight to begin, eager to start his unfair slaughter. Promotional page for Stone Cape Studio featuring various comic covers. Story intermission. The fight begins, and the injury is fatal. Jae-hyuk crumples to the ground in pain, while Hansol, showing no mercy, rushes in like a predator sensing blood. Jae-hyuk lies helpless, gasping for air, a sitting duck. Relishing his dominance, Hansol launches another charge, determined to crush his opponent completely. Ruthless and dirty, Hansol targets the injury. He stomps viciously on Jae-hyuk's wounded foot. Each impact sends shockwaves of agony, tearing a gut-wrenching scream from Jae-hyuk. Glass shards slice into flesh. Jae-hyuk realizes he can't even stand. Hansol gloats openly, mocking his opponent's weakness to the confused crowd to mask his own dirty sabotage. Even onlookers sense something is wrong, but the assault continues. Hansol uses his boxing footwork to dance around the crippled Jae-hyuk, who, frozen by pain, takes hit after hit. It's not that Hansol is fast, Jae-hyuk is immobilized. Unable to shift weight on his lacerated foot, he can neither dodge nor counter. His entire fighting capability has collapsed. Nowhere to run. His injured leg becomes a fatal anchor, pinning Kim Jae-hyuk in place as he watches a brutal storm of fists descend upon him. Meanwhile, a restless energy fills the campus air. Mockery mixes with awe as the spectacle of this one-sided slaughter spreads like a virus through the crowd. Agony pierces through him, sweat mixing with blood. Jae-hyuk struggles in an abyss of despair, hearing casual mockery while his soul screams in collapse. What do I do? Rage instantly ignites his blood. Don't insult them. Jae-hyuk explodes from the brink, his fist slamming into his opponent's gut with a furious roar. Yet reality is suffocatingly cruel. Kwok Hansel's arrogant laughter rings out again, looking down at the fallen Jae-hyuk like an insect, brutally announcing the start of round 2. Consciousness drifts in darkness until a familiar figure pierces the fog. Is that Sarah Hong? She is watching. In this instant, his chaotic thoughts suddenly freeze. A bolt of lightning strikes his mind. Sarah is a southpaw. If he can't move, he must change the rules entirely. Gritting his teeth, Jae-hyuk makes a desperate gamble. A murmur ripples through the crowd. To protect his injured leg, he forcibly switches to a southpaw stance. Is this suicide, or an awakening born of desperation? Southpaws are born counterfighters. The memory overlaps with his resolve. Facing Hansel's mockery, the confusion in Jae-hyuk's eyes is replaced by burning battle spirit. The provocation begins. He lightly taps Hansel's lead hand, teasing a raging bull. This seemingly weak caress is slowly shredding his opponent's sanity. Damn it! Let go! His psychological defenses collapse perfectly. Hansol swings blindly in rage. The trap is sprung. The prey has stepped into the web of death. A split second. Hansel's left hook comes screaming through the air. Jae-hyuk can feel the devastating wind pressure. It's now or never, life and death decided in a millisecond. Counter explosion. The moment his opponent overextends, Jae-hyuk's fist blasts out like a cannonball. The air shatters on impact. The tables have turned. A clean, brutal hit. Hansol stumbles back, disbelief written on his face. The crowd's gaze shifts from mockery to the shivering respect reserved for the strong. Nice one. Sarah's cheer sounds like a victory trumpet. Jaehyuk presses the attack. 1 week of training, but his momentum is enough to swallow all doubt. The hunter becomes the hunted. Han-Sol flees in panic only to trip over a bike. The once arrogant tyrant now rolls on the ground like a stray dog. Die! No rules in street fights. Consumed by shame and rage, Han-Sol grabs the bike wheel and smashes it at Jaehyuk. A dirty trick is the last refuge of the week. Chaos reigns again. Under the insane, ruleless barrage, Jaehyuk's vision blurs. Will the hope that just ignited be crushed by this wheel of violence? In the direst moment, Sarah's voice echoes, even if cornered. Jaehyuk's eyes refocus amidst the blood. It's not over yet. He still has one last card to play. Memories of training flash by, Minchai coldly instructing him to bait the enemy, and use the wall as leverage his only chance for a counterattack. Eyes blazing with fury, he uses the wall for leverage and unleashes a devastating straight punch, sending Kwak Han-Sol flying with a spray of blood. The enemy hits the ground hard, but it's not over. Echoing his tutor's ruthless command to mount him, Jaehyuk lunges at his fallen prey without hesitation. Think of an answer while I beat you. Fueled by rage over his insulted friend, Jaehyuk loses control, raining punches down on the terrified bully. Kwak Han-Sol screams in agony, curling up in pain. The once arrogant bully now begs pathetically under the storm of fists, desperately trying to make it stop. I'm sorry. Stop. Pleas for mercy are drowned out by the thud of impact. Deaf to the begging, Jaehyuk sees only a target that must be destroyed. It's over, Kwak Han-Sol! With a final roar, a bloodied Jaehyuk stands tall, delivering the blow that ends the nightmare and marks his awakening. Even as his opponent falls, the rage burns on. I will never forgive you! He roars under the blue sky, trembling fists proving this was more than a fight, it was vengeance. The air freezes. Jaehyuk stands over his fallen enemy, gasping for breath as sweat and blood drip down. The crowd stares in stunned silence, paralyzed by the brutality. The shockwaves of the fight spread. Watching from a distance, a silver-haired boy smirks at Jaehyuk's violent display. Haha, just as expected. This looks fun. After the fight, they see Hong Sarah off at the bus stop. Teased by Sarah about his performance, a flustered Jaehyuk covers his ears, blushing and crediting her teaching. The bus arrives, and with one last cryptic joke, Sarah hops on. Watching his friend leave, Jaehyuk's embarrassment melts into deep gratitude. On the bus ride back, Lee Minchai breaks the silence. Dropping her usual playfulness, she stares at him intently. Hey loser, why did you lose control like that? Memories of his blood-soaked fists flash back. Jaehyuk lowers his head, avoiding Minchai's gaze, stammering as he tries to explain that sudden burst of violence. Because they are people I want to be friends with. Though Minchai warns him not to go too far next time, Jaehyuk clenches his fist, his eyes revealing a newfound resolve. The scene shifts to a dark corner where thugs are mocking a victim. Suddenly, heavy footsteps interrupt their laughter as a cold, uniformed figure emerges from the shadows. Faced with the senior thug's mockery and physical provocation, the freshman, Seo Doyen, remains expressionless, coldly recounting his history of dominating middle schools. The laughter dies instantly. When challenged, a cold light flashes in Seo Doyen's eyes. He meets their gaze without flinching. Let's fight! Facing the senior's mockery, Jaehyuk doesn't flinch. He pushes his glasses up, his calm words slicing through their bravado like a blade. The humiliated bully charges, roaring in rage. But before his fist connects, Jaehyuk's counter strikes like thunder. A dull thud echoes as arrogance is instantly crushed. A brutal flying kick follows, sending the opponent soaring like a broken kite to crash into the dirt. Onlookers stare in wide-eyed horror, paralyzed by the overwhelming display of power. Meanwhile, on a different battlefield, the melody of violence plays on. Amidst the dull thuds of flesh on flesh, a silver-haired youth displays and even more brutal dominance. Twilight blankets the school. The silver-haired boy stands over the fallen bodies, expression cold. Adjusting his collar, he turns and pushes open the heavy door to the gym equipment room. Inside the dim room gathers the elite group known as Invincible. Hostility fills the air at his intrusion, but the arrogance in his eyes far outweighs anyone else's. A challenger claims to have beaten the top first year, demanding status. The silver-haired boy smirks with disdain. I won't acknowledge you unless you defeat the one I approve of. He holds up his phone, screen glowing with Kim Jae-hyuk's photo. In this moment, the calm before the storm breaks. A new target has been locked. The story continues, with more exciting works waiting to be explored. Despite winning the fight, reality remains harsh. Jae-hyuk thought peace had come, yet here he is, running errands for Min Shai, once again being called a loser. But this time is different. A group of self-proclaimed outcasts surrounds him. Their eyes hold no mockery, only fanatical admiration for a hero, leaving Jae-hyuk completely bewildered. The members of the Anime Appreciation Club are impossibly enthusiastic. Amidst laughter and chatter, a dazed Jae-hyuk is swept away toward their secret base. Stepping into the club room, a girl on her phone looks up casually. The moment she recognizes him, her eyes widen, and she erupts into an ear-piercing scream. Overwhelmed with excitement, Daesum tumbles right off her chair, grimacing in pain. Far from a cool club member, she's a total fangirl losing her mind over her idol. Ignoring her mismatched slippers, she rushes to shake his hand, blushing furiously. I watched all your matches, she stammers. Jae-hyuk turns beet red at this sudden wave of passion. The room descends into chaos as classmates tease Daesum about her obsession. Standing in the eye of the storm, Jae-hyuk feels awkward, yet senses a long-lost warmth and acceptance. Daesum complains about Jae-hyuk being slow, trying to maintain her composure, but her flushed cheeks betray her. Inside, she's desperately looking forward to spending time with her idol. The computer screen glows with a group photo. In this little world of anime and snacks, everyone is clumsily extending an invitation for him to stay. While Jae-hyuk doubts his own charm, Daesum beside him has already short-circuited from shyness. On this afternoon filled with youthful jitters, a romantic tension begins to quietly rise. Baek Daesum's playful, "My hero," comment sends a flush across Jae-hyuk's cheeks, leaving him flustered. But as solitude returns, a glance at his phone freezes his blood. Something on the screen shatters the calm. Before he can recover, a chilling, "Found you," pierces the air. Jae-hyuk jumps, watching the figure walk past. Realization strikes like lightning, and he shouts at the retreating back. "Wait, are you the number one of the first years? Let's fight." The cold command crushes Jae-hyuk's hope. Exhausted from previous battles, he screams his refusal in desperation, but his plea is ignored. A brutal impact silences him, sending him crashing to the floor. Blows rain down as Jae-hyuk begs for mercy, but the attacker only presses harder, demanding a fight. Suddenly, the violence halts. The attacker freezes mid-motion, his eyes widening in unexpected shock. The atmosphere turns to ice. Recognition dawns, and eyes widen in pure horror, sweat trickling down a pale face. A trembling voice whispers the name of the predator. "Stop! Seo Doyen!" Leaving Jae-hyuk utterly confused in the suffocating silence.